Hello, I'm Robbie. Welcome to Book Squirrel, and this is the first annual ACORN Awards. Da-da-da, ba-ba-bum, Book Squirrel. I don't know. I had been wavering on my ACORN system this year, which is what I use in my individual reviews to look at the book's approach, characters, offerings, readability, and narration. But instead of doing a ranking list, I figured, you know what, why not an ACORN award system where I give ACORN awards to the best and worst of each category. So since there are 5 categories in the ACORN system, that means that there's going to be 10 ACORN awards in those categories, but also I'm going to be doing my favorite Book Squirrel bit, my favorite book of the year, and then my most disappointing book of the year. So in total, that's 13, kind of an unlucky number. But oh well, here we are. Maybe by next year's ACORN Awards, I will have more ideas. But I think 13 is quite a lot to begin with. Now, for each best of category or favorite category, I am going to include 5 nominations. For each worst of and most disappointed categories, I will be including only 3 books. I tended to have better feelings about the books I read this year than I didn't, and I don't really want to try to spread very much negativity about these books. Also, because I only have 21 books to pull from, that does mean that you are going to see some duplicates on this list. It's not because I'm trying to hate or love so much on specific books. It's just that the sample size is just, not that big. Next year, I'm really looking forward to having a whole year's worth of books to choose from. I think it's going to be even better, especially since I have this little prototype ACORN Awards out of the way. And also, I do expect that there are going to be plenty of people who watch this video and have disagreements with my opinions. I totally expect that. I totally welcome that. I've said it multiple times on my channel. I am somebody who sees value in a diversity of thought. So just keep in mind that everything that I'm saying is just a reflection of my own experience and how my brain interprets things. If you think differently, that's actually a really good thing. Feel free to leave your support of my opinions or your disagreement with my opinions in the comments, but let's please be respectful either way. And if I do offend you in any ways, there's always the option of just leaving the video. That's not my goal. If you find me offensive in any form, please exercise your agency. You do you. I also dressed up for the occasion. I am not someone who is going to be wearing a suit. To me, this is dressed up. I like wearing colorful button-downs, especially in some sort of plaid. It just speaks to me, so I hope you like it. I think I look cute. I had a couple of different options to choose from, and I really felt like this one said ACORN Awards the most. So let's get on with the show. Approach. All right, starting with the approach category. It might be a little self-explanatory, but for this, I'm really looking at any pieces of information I have before I actually start reading. That's including the blurb, the cover, anything I know about the book itself or the author, stuff like that. So for best approach, the nominees are Dune by Frank Herbert, Greatest Hits by Harlan Ellison, James by Percival Everett, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samanor Cordova, and Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson. And the winner of the ACORN Award for Best Approach is Monstrilio by Gerardo Samanor Cordova. I had not heard of this book prior to seeing one person on BookTube mention it, but the moment they mentioned it, I thought the cover was absolutely endearing. Love the different colorful shapes and the little devil dude at the bottom. And I only read a couple sentences of the blurb for this one before I said, nope, I don't want to read anymore because I don't want anything else to potentially be spoiled. Man, I feel like this book spoke to me on some kind of weird spiritual level. I know that this book wasn't written for me, obviously, but it felt like this book was written for me. There was so much about this book that excited me. The Latin cultural roots and folklore, the fact that there were queer characters, the little devil, like it just was a blend of everything that I wanted. It already had a soft spot in my heart before I even started reading it. Congratulations, Monstrilio. All right, for the worst approach, the nominees are Crash by J.G. Ballard, Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, and Swan Song by Robert McCammon. And the ACORN Award for Worst Approach goes to Swan Song by Robert McCammon. Congratulations, Swan Song. This has nothing to do with the actual writing of the book. This is all to do with my approach to it. Crash was a short book. I knew I was going to get through that really quickly, so I wasn't that scared. Solaris, I was interested in the blurb. Swan Song, there was almost nothing about this book that enticed me, and I was actually very scared to go into it. The blurb was not exciting to me. It was very convoluted, and the book is incredibly long, so that was intimidating as well. And then also the cover. I didn't like the coloration, and it just nothing about this book really spoke to me. The only reason why I put it on my TBR was because other people had recommended it incredibly highly. So I think that it just wins this category. Characters. For best characters, the nominees are Dune by Frank Herbert, James by Percival Everett, Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova, and Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes. The winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Best Characters, I'm giving to Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. To me, Let Us Descend is one of the most intentional books I've ever seen when it comes to characters. One thing I really loved that Jesmyn Ward did was she only named the characters who were enslaved. Any character that was an active participant of perpetuating the slave system were not named. She really shows the power of names. She even gave characterizations to elements, and I found that to be incredibly fascinating. The way that she very cleverly kind of ignores certain things about characters who this isn't their story to tell, I found it to be so unique. She didn't just make deep characters, she used the concept of characters as another tool to tell her story, and so that's why I give Let Us Descend the award. Moving on to worst characters, the nominees are Consider Phoebus by Ian M. Banks, Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, and Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. And the winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Worst Characters goes to Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson. Congrats, Snow Crash. I found the characters in this book to just be problematic. I felt like the beginning of this book was starting out really nicely, character development-wise, but then nothing remained consistent. Everything that he kind of established kind of went out the window. I found this presentation to be very sexist, homophobic. He made the main character a black character, which I was intrigued by. There was nothing about their blackness that was of any importance except for people to call them slurs, which just felt really weird, given that it wasn't a social commentary about blackness, and it just kind of felt gratuitous there. Pretty much everything is done by the men, the women kind of just follow orders, and I hated this stupid love story between the main girl and the villain. It felt like he was writing a love story to villainy. I found this book to just be really gross when it came to the characters, and just very problematic. That's all I gotta say about that. Offerings. Starting with the Best Offerings category, the nominees are Blindsight by Peter Watts, Crash by J.G. Ballard, Dune by Frank Herbert, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, and Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. And the winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Best Offerings goes to Dune by Frank Herbert. He created an entire world to the point where the book had a 30-page dictionary of all the terms he had created in the back matter. Just absolutely immense offerings. Almost too many offerings, if that's possible, because I know many people who have attempted to absorb this material that has just been turned off by the density of it. That really means that for those who are willing to take the plunge, the waters are the deepest here. He looks at ecology, he looks at politics, he looks at oppression, he looks at so many different themes, created his own universe on top of it. Might not be the most poignant of the books in this list, but I felt like to not give it to Dune this year when it is on the list would be a failure on my part, and that's just my brain. This was a tight race, and there were even more books that I really wish that I could have put on this list too, but I limited it to 5, and these were the 5. On to the worst offerings category. The nominees are Consider Phoebus by Ian M. Banks, Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, and The Whistling by Rebecca Netley. I give the 2025 ACORN Award for Worst Offerings to Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks. This book is primarily one big allegory on undelivered promises. The very terms consider Phlebas comes from a T.S. Eliot poem called The Wasteland, and really the concept surrounding Phlebas is that it doesn't matter what you want in life in the big scheme of things, because once you're dead, none of it matters. I feel like it's a really fascinating idea. I would love to read a book that is more blatantly about that concept, but the promises that are given to you are fascinating, and that's what I wanted to read. And this book was effectively like, well, too bad, so sad. What you want is not what you're going to get. And to me, I don't really feel like that offering lands. I just felt like this was just the author just slapping me in the face for his own pleasure, and I did not consent. You know, once I'm dead, it won't matter that I was disappointed in this book. Readability. In this category, I'm primarily just boiling this down to accessibility and readability. Like the length of the book, is the language in this book accessible? And not to poo-poo on this category, if I can read through your book without having to refer to a dictionary once, or even think that you're an author writing a book because it's just that accessible of writing, that's effectively what I'm looking for. So this is kind of a very vanilla category. The nominees are In West Mills by Deshaun Charles Winslow, Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and The Whistling by Rebecca Nedley. The 2025 ACORN Award winner for Best Readability goes to The Whistling by Rebecca Nedley. And the main reason why is because, to me, this is almost the definition of readability. It's the most consumable. I think it is a talent to be able to write in such an accessible way. I really felt like the author had removed herself completely from her writing, and I found that really added to the readability. There is death in this book, including the death of a child, but Rebecca Nedley does not stay with any of that for long at all. She doesn't really look at the psychology of it, so it doesn't become a very difficult read in that sense. Moving on to worst readability category, the nominees are Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks. I promise I'm not trying to just hate on this book. Again, I really only had 20 books to pull from, and I've got reasons for this, okay? And it's just top of the alphabet, so it feels like I'm beating up on this book, but just wait, just hold your horses, okay? Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach and Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson. And the winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Worst Readability goes to Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. Pen Pal is the book that I DNF'd this year, and I wasn't allowing myself to include it in any other category. I didn't finish the book, so I can't really speak to it on a lot of the other categories. I guess I could have included it in approach. But when it comes to worst readability, I put it here because I could not stand the writing. I found the sentences to be really labored. It was obvious that there was not an editor. I just found this writing to be absolutely unreadable. And that's on me. I know that there's plenty of people out there who love this book. It is a very short book, so it has readability in that factor, but I couldn't even finish it personally, so I had to put it on this list. And to the A to the Narration. Narration. This category primarily focuses on the way the story is told, the structure of the story, how well the promises are delivered, stuff like that. For Best Narration, the nominees are Salem's Lot by Stephen King, Crash by J.G. Ballard, Dune by Frank Herbert, Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes, and Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. And the winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Best Narration goes to Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes. This book actually kind of bugged me at the very beginning. I found the first couple chapters to be a bit slow, but by the end of it, man, I felt like these people were a part of my family. I felt so connected. The ways that he would paint certain scenes. There's this heart-wrenching Christmas scene. Reading this scene through this child's eyes, he's just got such an amazing way of putting the heart and the soul into the story. This book hit my soul so hard that it made me cry. It's the only book this year that really brought out so much emotion. Man, the artistry here. He characterizes music and jazz music and dance in such a beautiful manner. And again, he managed to really pull on some heartstrings that a lot of these other books didn't do strong enough to hit the threshold that really made me just have a really big emotional reaction. Moving on to worst narration. The nominees are Consider Phoebus by Ian M. Banks, In West Mills by Deshaun Charles Winslow, and Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Can you tell the books that I struggled with this year? And the winner is Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. There's the biggest info dumps I've seen in my life in this book. And in the afterword of the book that Neil Stephenson wrote, he says, "It should be pointed out that when I wrote the Babel material, I was standing on the shoulders of many, many historians and archaeologists who actually did the research. Most of the words spoken by the librarian originated with these people, and boy, does it show." He effectively just has entire chapters where the main character is just having a conversation with an AI who's just info dumping on him, info dumping on him, info dumping on him. I wish he had just found a better way to incorporate those ideas, which were really interesting. And this book has a lot of interesting ideas that he does incorporate in a way that I really appreciated. So I know that he's capable of it. I just felt like he just wasn't inspired by the crux of his book. And so therefore was just like, I was just like, when is this info dump can be over? Oh, there's another chapter of this. Oh, there's another chapter of this info dump. It destroyed the pacing for me. Plus, it was just really inconsistent. The first half of the book I found to be really detailed and really interesting narratively. But then the second half of the book felt like it was just a completely different book. And I'll tell you right now, the promise is that this is a pizza delivery ninja. And the pizza delivery ninja delivers not a single pizza in this book. There is a pizza that is delivered, but it's not by the pizza delivery ninja, okay? So I was really like, the promises I felt were just completely disregarded. And those info dumps, ugh. Okay, so before I get to my favorite book of 2025 and my most disappointing book of 2025 categories, I wanted to have a fun little bonus award here for my favorite Book Squirrel bit of 2025. Sometimes when I'm doing my individual reviews, I'll be inspired to do a cute little bit. Most of the time, it's when I'm reading a sci-fi or a horror or anything that's not just super, super serious, because I don't really want to do like comedic acts for a super serious topic. But here are the 5 that I've picked out as my favorite of the year, and I gave them little names so that I could still have them in alphabetical order. So here we go. Favorite Book Squirrel bit category. The nominees are, from my We Have Always Lived in the Castle review, A is for Amanita Phalloides. What if I don't want to approach? What if I want to see them approach while I hide safely behind a bush or a tree? I think I'd prefer that. And then I can watch them talk about me as they will, say mean things about me, and I can know everything that they really think about me, even when they don't say it out loud in front of my face. I don't think A should stand for approach. I think it should stand for Amanitas Phalloides. Amanitas Phalloides acorns, am I right? From my Rendezvous with Rama review, Attack of the Quokka. Book Squirrel here. I'm changing my propulsion. Object should be coming into view shortly. We need to see if this thing is hostile. What is that? Oh my God. What is that thing? The light seems to be fluctuating. It can't stay. Starting with my The Exorcist review, the ongoing bit, garrulous. I did learn that I'm garrulous, though. Which is someone who is prone to talk excessively. I could go on and on and on about all the amazing things with characters in this book. I think I've said a good chunk. I think I've gotten my thoughts out. So let's see. I just need to come up with 3 words that are not going to be used by me. I want to use garrulous, but I want to use garrulous. So let's not use that one. Let me tell you, he tells you everything. I thought that I was garrulous. This book is garrulous. From my Solaris review, no one puts Batman in a corner. Are you sure you're recording a book review right now? Yeah, and you're in my shot, so why don't you just back up? Just back up. Okay, yep. Back here. Further. Further.
There is no further, it's just a wall.
Just stay there. I'll tell you when you can come back, okay?
I'm bored.
You want to read a book?
I don't like words.
Well, I've got comics.
Okay.
Volume 1, Court of the Owls. Here you go. It's about you. You can read up on yourself.
Ooh. I really don't remember any of this. I've never met a group of talking owls in my life.
I really need to finish this review, okay?
Fine. I'm going to go sit out in the hallway.
Well, works for me. And from my Dune review, that's Duncan. So what, I just drink this and I can see all the potential futures in front of me? Okay. I mean, it kind of looks like liquid detergent, but I'll give it a try. Let's see. 1 star. It's 1 star.
We got rid of all the bats.
Lizard turd. More like DNF. The hell was that?
That's Duncan.
Oh. My favorite Book Squirrel bit of 2025 goes to garrulous. When I learned that word from The Exorcist, I was like, this really defines me. And I had a lot of fun just finding different places in other videos to put my little footnote, garrulous. Doesn't make me laugh as hard as a couple of the others, but in the end, it was the one that had the least amount of effort that I had to put into it. And it was the only one that was ongoing. So I kind of made it like a little staple of the channel to have the term pop up here and there. So that's why it is my favorite Book Squirrel bit of 2025. I will say I had a lot of fun doing all of these. They make me laugh, and I think that that is very important. I hope they made you laugh in some way or provided you with some entertainment. Okay, it is time for the 2 biggest categories of the ACORN Awards. And I'm going to start out with my most disappointing book. The nominees are Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks, Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, and Swan Song by Robert McCammon. The winner of the 2025 ACORN Award for Most Disappointing Book goes to Snow Crash. And the reason why it's not Consider Phlebas is because I went into that book already with low expectations. Did it still piss me off? Yes, but it wasn't my most disappointing. Swan Song won my worst approach. I was not excited for that book. I was incredibly impressed with Robert McCammon's writing. I'm looking forward to reading more of his books in the future because I do think his writing is excellent. But I was disappointed by the end. And Snow Crash won most disappointing because I was so excited for this book. It was on my best approach nominee list, and the first half of this book was validating that excitement. I really liked the first 45% of this book, and then it just went downhill in such an unexpected way. The info dump happening around the 50% mark, and then the problematic aspects just building and building and building in the second half. And to me, that makes Snow Crash my biggest disappointment. And the thing that I'm scared about is I do have Anathem on my TBR wheel. That book is written by Neil Stevenson, and it is over 1,000 pages. And I've heard one other person review Anathem, and they said something very similar to what I experienced with Snow Crash, where they liked the first half, then there was this weird twist, and then they kind of didn't really like the second half that much. And the fact that it's a 1,000-page book, I am like so scared to get to that book. If I read it in 2026, it's already a contender for worst approach because I'm so scared of that book. I don't want to be trashing on anybody, and I'm still putting the benefit of the doubt in Neil Stevenson's corner. I'm still going to give that book an attempt, and I'm really hoping that through that book he kind of proves me wrong. And what does it matter if I'm right or wrong anyways, right? These are just reflections on my opinion. But yeah, Snow Crash was my biggest disappointment. Womp womp. And then on to my favorite book of 2025. The nominees are Salem's Lot by Stephen King, Dune by Frank Herbert, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova, Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes, and The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. It was really hard to choose my favorite book of the year. I liked so many books that I read. Crash could have also been on this list just because of the impact that it had on me. That was very kind of interesting. But I would say my favorite book out of these 5 nominees is Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. I felt so refreshed by that book. This book was the only book that I read this year that had a really big queer presence, and not only a big queer presence, but a normalized queer presence. I found that these characters were both lovable and flawed, which added a nice humanistic aspect to them. And the fact that they were just living their queer lives and weren't making a big deal out of it, like that is what it is to be a queer person. It's really only everybody else that's not queer that thinks to be queer has to be some spectacle. And so it was really, really, really nice to have that type of characterization. I loved the flavor that Gerardo Samano Cordova added. It's so colorful. I wish that the ending was expanded upon just a little bit more and didn't come so abruptly, but that is my only real critique of that book in hindsight. I just felt spiritually connected to that book in some way. But all of these books, and even some that aren't on this list, could have very easily been my favorite as well. I was incredibly engaged by Salem's Lot. I was very much inspired and really enjoyed the prose and the offerings of Dune. Not Without Laughter hit my heart in such a really strong way. And Parable of the Sower, I really love any book that really shows the example of spirituality that Parable of the Sower did. I just found so many books this year to be a joy, and I really am excited for what 2026 has to offer. And I can't imagine with an entire year of books under my belt, once I do this next year, I'm going to have an even harder time with all of this. But hopefully I won't be beating up on the same books time and time again. I really, really did have 3 or 4 very specifically bad experiences, and they showed in my awards. But yeah, so those are the ACORN Awards. I hope that you found some enjoyment out of this. So that's that. What were your favorite and least favorite books of 2025? Please let me know in the comments. And until next time, I hope you're having a wonderful whatever, and I'll talk to you then. Book Squirrel out. Bye. Book Squirrel. I don't know.